Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Matthew Maddox, and I have the pleasure of being the MC tonight of the second Hope Talks here at Porterville College. And I want to first thank Porterville College for hosting us tonight, and I'm really excited for the talks that we have tonight. To begin tonight, I just want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do before we get to our amazing speakers tonight, and then we're going to have just a really open conversation. So first, we have this amazing brochure with the agenda that was made on it. And so I first just want to thank a few people before we get started. One is literally filming right now, so hopefully she's getting my good side, Daisy, who made this for us. So thank you, Daisy, for all the hard work that you put in. So much hard work. Thank you so much. I wasn't kidding. I told her that the next time we do this, I want her to come with me, so we got to figure out a way to do it. I'm just saying. I also want to thank Frida, who was absolutely amazing. There was not a single bit of anything that got done that she didn't put a stamp on it. And so I want to thank Frida for all of her amazing hard work. She was I didn't have to worry about anything. She said, I got it, she got it. And so thank you, Frida, wherever you are, or if you can hear my voice.
White and black contrast, huh?
And so I also want to thank everyone who just helped out. And in a minute, I'll get to thank a couple of them here in just a second, very personally as they get ready to speak. But I also want to thank Todd and Genevieve, who were the people who were our head of the Leadership Academy, which in a second I'll tell you how this all got started. But they believed in me, they believed in this project, and they have been very supportive this entire time. And so I thank them for their constant support through all of this. And so thank you to the two of you as well. So what I want to do first is I want to tell you a little bit about how this came about. And then I'm going to invite the chancellor to speak for a moment, only a moment. And then we're going to invite the interim our interim vice president of student services, Aaron Wingfield, to come up. And then I'm going to introduce our amazing speakers tonight. As tonight progresses, if you need to use the restroom, here's where I'm going to put on my stewardess hat. The restrooms are here and here. No, just kidding. If you do need to use the restroom, I know there's restrooms right across the way. And so if you need to, please get up and use them at any time. One thing that I think is really important before we begin is mental health is not something you can look at and see in someone. What I mean by that is we typically look at someone and go, well, they're experiencing this. Or if someone maybe has a physical disability, we can go, oh, they're dealing with that. But mental health is a struggle that oftentimes can go undiagnosed, unseen, and really, frankly, unheard. Oftentimes, mental health is where people feel embarrassed, don't know if there are resources available to them. Maybe they might have been told as a young child, as one of our speakers last semester, Perla, as a Hispanic woman, she was told, just go clean more, just go pray more. And so I don't know what cultural or experiences you might have gone through. And frankly, I don't know what you might be experiencing right now. But I want to tell you that in this moment, you are in a space where you are welcome and you are safe. The three of us have different lived experiences. And the three of us are going to share with you what we've gone through. And we want you to know that in the storms we've experienced, you can find hope. And that's why we named this the Hope Talks. We want you to know that in life's storms, in the moments and in the difficulties, when you feel like you're just surrounded by storms, you can still fight back. And that's how these Hope Talks came about. The Hope Talks came about because last year I was in the KCCD Leadership Academy. And Todd is in charge of the Leadership Academy with his right-hand person, aka the one who's really in charge, Genevieve. We all know it to be true, right? And he even admits it, right? And so we're put into groups, and we're required to come up with a group project, right? Sorry, Roger, I'm moving. When you give a communications scholar a microphone, he's going to move, my bad, right? So, right. So, in our groups, we were required to create a project and then eventually pitch this project all semester long, all year long, and then eventually we come to our graduation where the chancellor and other dignitaries would potentially promote our program. At the time, I was experiencing a depressive state. I didn't identify it yet as a depressive state, and I frankly didn't tell people I was in a depressive state. To be very honest with you, about a week before I pitched this idea to my team, I was online looking up things to do for my therapist. And I stumbled upon an anchor. And I was going to draw it. She wanted me to do something expressive. But something said click on it. And I clicked on it, and I clicked on this box. And when I clicked on the box, it said, find your anchor. And then it said, for suicide prevention. And in that moment, I went, wait, what? That was the first time I'd really thought to myself, maybe I have what is called suicidal ideation. See, I didn't want to die, but I couldn't get out of my head. I didn't want to go through the steps of dying. I just couldn't get out of my head. The ruminations of the things that I was going through, the thoughts of worthlessness, the thoughts of being unlovable, the thoughts that I was never good enough, that all of the things that I was experiencing, I couldn't get out of my head. So death seemed like the best thing, and it wasn't, again, that I wanted to do it. It just felt, So I ordered that box. I've opened that box 3 times. The next week, when I got that box, my team was meeting and we were pitching ideas. And our team was talking about ideas, and we had this whole other thing, and I kept pretty quiet, and then something inside me said, you aren't telling the truth yet. And so at that point, I had told like 3 people what I was going through, and my therapist was one of them. So I opened up to my team. And very graciously, my team, through the tears, said, I think we need to talk about that. So through the whole year, we developed the Hope Talks, and then at graduation, I got a bigger audience, and I hadn't told the whole academy yet. I'm really good at keeping things quiet. I'm really good at a mask, hiding things. So that day, I told this story and a few more details. Very kindly, the chancellor came up to me and told me some very kind words about how brave I was to tell my story. And then he was very kind again later on in the banquet and said it again. And then I thought, great, I told my story. Whew, feels a little better. At that point, I told like 100 people. Yeah. And I was getting better, and things were breaking, and I was feeling good. And then I got an email from Todd in June going, hey, we need to talk. And I was like, oh no, am I in trouble? And he's like, the chancellor wants to talk. I was like, uh-oh, are you going to revoke my tenure? Like, it's coming up. I just got tenure, by the way. Yes. Can't get rid of me now. No, I'm just kidding. Todd says, no, the chancellor wants to do your program. I was like, excuse me? No, he wants you to tell your story to a lot more people. So tonight, I tell this story again because I know there's a lot of people, and we created this because there's a lot of people who I want you to see me on campus and see that there's other people like you who have experienced things and you're not alone. That if you happen to see me, you can come up to me and say, hey, Matt, I just need someone to talk to. So tonight, we bring community partners, we bring speakers, and we bring hope. A Bible verse that has helped me, and I actually literally wear it. Hebrews 6:19 says, I have a hope, firm and secure for my soul. And so I stand not only on that verse, but also on what that means. So ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we're going to be open and vulnerable, and some of you are already looking at me like, dang, that was heavy. We'll lighten it up. I tried to tell some jokes. We'll work on it. Don't worry, the chancellor will be funny enough here in just a moment, right? But that's what we're here for. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being willing to listen to our stories, to be open, to exchange with us tonight, right? So with that being said, I have the distinct honor to now invite Chancellor of KCCD. Please, everyone, welcome the Chancellor. Stephen Lundberg, up to the front, please. You're very welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I want to first start off, and as I've done on multiple occasions, I want to thank Matt, and not just for his words, but here's why. Not only is being vulnerable important, but I'm going to introduce another word, courage. You have to have the courage to have these kind of conversations, because being vulnerable is not easy. And having the courage to talk about us is not easy. Unfortunately, as I look across the room, I suspect, like many of you, when I grew up, my parents didn't graduate from high school, and so we didn't have a lot of decorum in our household. And if you got hurt, you sort of rubbed some dirt on it, right? And you went about your business. And unless there was blood or a bone sticking out, you didn't go to the doctor, because that's just not what we did. And so that was our physical health. There was no conversation about mental health. And there was no conversation asking, are you okay? Because again, you rub some dirt on it, you get back up and you continue about your business, and whatever's going on inside, you deal with it, because that's exactly what you are supposed to do. If I can leave you with one thing from what I say tonight, that is not the right thing to do. I want to make sure you understand that it is okay not to be okay. If you take anything away from what I say, it is okay not to be okay. Matt said it earlier. If you look around this room and you look at these gentlemen who are also courageous in their own way, every person tonight is going through something, right? Everybody in this room is going through something. Maybe that's a relationship challenge. Maybe that's a financial challenge. Maybe that are things that you're not even sure how or what to deal with. But just know that there are people here tonight who will help. And there are people who are here tonight to say to you, it's okay. I've had the same kind of challenges in my life, but tonight's not my time to talk about those, because I had very specific instructions about being brief. And so I'm going to do that. I again, every great idea comes from somebody who cares enough to give of themselves. And so Matt, again, thank you for always giving of yourself. And he means it. If there was one person left on this earth, and that person was Matt, and you needed somebody to talk to, he would be the person that I would turn to no matter what. And so Thank you for being you and being vulnerable and being a leader. And gentlemen, thank you for telling your stories in just a few minutes, because it does matter. And the more that we can make this the norm, that's what this is all about, is making sure that we know it's okay. And in the 6 words that Matt shared with me before I got up here, he said, you need to do these things. Be brief, be bold, be gone. So with that, thank you again, and I hope you have a great evening and appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thank you so much.
Chancellor. Now, the reason, okay, that was a joke. I would never say that to the Chancellor completely. Actually, I would. The reality was, I really wanted to introduce my favorite person, which is the Vice President of Student Services, Erin Wingfield. Seriously, I've told her that I kind of just crushed on her when I met her last year. I probably shouldn't admit that on live stream, but I did. I totally crushed on Erin, totally did. Right? So there's words here, but I'll read them, sure. So Erin is currently the interim vice president of student services at PC. In addition to her role, she is dean of student services and counseling. She has 24 years of experience in her post-secondary education. She holds an MA in leadership studies from Fresno Pacific University, a BS in business administration from the University of Phoenix in Bakersfield. In addition to that, she has an Association of Communication College Administration. Whew, that's a lot of letters. Mentor program. She does a lot of stuff. All right. At this point, Erin already knows all these amazing things. I'm just going to let Erin do what Erin does, which is be amazing. And so everyone, please invite Erin up to the front. I don't think that one's live. No.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a crier, so every time I hear him speak, I get tears in my eyes, so I have to pull it together so that I can just say a few words. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We appreciate your attendance today. On behalf of the college, it is my honor to welcome you to this evening's Hope Talks event. Today's event is more than just a gathering. It's a reminder that mental health matters, and that no one on this campus has to face their challenges alone. As students, faculty, and staff, we each carry our own responsibilities and pressures, and at times those demands can weigh heavily on our mental and emotional well-being. The Hope Talks project was created to open the door to honest conversations related to mental health, to replace silence with support, stigma with understanding. It's about creating a campus environment where seeking help is encouraged, where listening is valued, and where every individual feels seen and heard. For our students in attendance today, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. College can be a time of growth and opportunity, but it also can bring stress, uncertainty, and moments of struggle. We've all been there, we know. I want to emphasize that your well-being is our priority. Your success is not defined solely by grades or achievements, but by your ability to care for yourself and connect with others along the way. Today, I encourage you all to listen, to learn, and to engage with others. And please take advantage of meeting with all of our amazing community partners in attendance today. Take the opportunity to reflect on your own well-being and to support those around you. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply show up for one another. Thank you for being a part of this important initiative. Together, we can continue to bring a stronger, more compassionate culture of care here on our campus. PC student health and wellness counselors who are in attendance today, they're out there, Alex and Ashley. They're available to help you if you need any needs or would like to speak to them. Please check out the Student Health and Wellness website, which is chock full of resources, screening tools, and presentations, videos, and timely care, which many of our students do not know about. It's 24/7 access to both mental health and medical care providers, all free. and much, much more on the website. Again, thank you so much for being here and being present today. I can't wait to hear our presenters. Thank you for your time today, and wishing you all a good evening. Thank you.
All right, now we get to hear from our featured speakers. So now I get the very fancy job of pulling up our slides. So our first speaker is Dr. Jonathan Schultz. He is a professor and counselor at Bakersfield College. He's also a researcher, writer, speaker, social media influencer, as well as a mental health advocate. He has a master's degree in school counseling and a doctorate in organizational leadership, a former baseball player at Porterville College. He's openly shared his personal journey dealing with mental health, including diagnoses of anxiety, depression, ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder. After experiencing a major mental health crisis in 2020, he shifted his focus towards advocacy and education, using research, writing, and speaking to raise awareness and to provide hope and resources for those with OCD and other mental health challenges. Roughly 2 years ago, I actually had seen Jonathan give a talk at BC, and it was roughly about a year or so ago, before the Hope Talks was even a thought in my mind, that he and I were at an opening day and we were just shooting the breeze, and I said, yeah, you know what, someday you and I got to team up and do something. And all of a sudden, a year plus later, here we are. So I have the distinct honor of introducing Dr. Jonathan Schultz.
Well, thank you so much. Are we good? All this stuff sounds good. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, for first off asking me to do this and talking about it. I remember that talk, and I distinctly remember being out on the balcony, and Matt and I were bringing up this idea, and I said, look, anything that you do that has to do with mental health, let me know and I'll help. And for multiple reasons, one, it's important, two, it's not talked about, but really, I've learned a few things as a counselor at Bakersfield College for the last few years, and I'll get into my biography pretty soon. But there's really three things I've learned, is that every single person in this room that I meet with in my office is either a story, a piece of information, or a mentor away from changing their life trajectory. And I'm not saying that to start off with like a cool, like you teach in your speech class, like get the hook in. It's just true. Every single student I've ever met with, person I've talked to, anybody in this room is one story, one piece of information, or one mentor away from changing their life trajectory. So things like this I eat up, because I hope and I pray, I literally say a prayer that Matt and I both could hopefully share something, whether it's the story that we share or the information that we give, that someone in this audience's life has changed, at least the trajectory to where maybe you'll go out and get help, feel better, and just change your life trajectory. So that's what I'm praying for. Before I start, though, you should probably know who I am. So just to give you a little bit of a biography, I have basically been in Porterville, Terabella area my whole life. My family actually founded a church in Terabella back in the early 1900s. I just now bought the house that my dad was born in back in the 1950s, and I've lived in Terabella my whole life. I went to a school called Zion out in Terabella, if anyone's familiar with that. I had 9 kids in my graduating class, so small little school. My grandpa was one of the first classes. My dad went, I went, my son and my daughters go there now as well. I then went to Porterville High School, so stayed local. From Porterville High School, so I came here to Porterville College. In fact, before we were talking, I said I don't get super nervous talking in front of people, but this classroom definitely piqued my anxiety, because this is where I did Speech 101 25 years ago. And I remember I almost passed out, like I got blinky, and it was so like I feel kind of weird being here. Like this is right where I was at, and I remember right where that gentleman is with the amazing beard. Right, that was where my instructor was sitting, like looking at me the whole time, taking notes. I couldn't, oh man. So anyway, if I seem a little off, that's why. I'm a little off right now, because come back in here. But so I went to Porterville College where I played baseball. After 3 years here, took me longer than 2 years to get out. So I always tell my students, it's possible. You don't have to get out in 2 years, everybody. Took me 3 years. I then went down to the Master's College, where I kept playing baseball, and I got my bachelor's degree in communication. Then went to CSUB for my master's degree in counseling, and I just recently graduated with my doctorate degree in leadership from the University of Laverne. And as of right now, as the biography said, I am a counselor at Bakersfield. So for the students in here, and I see there's quite a few, if you go see Araceli or Yolanda, I do the same thing. I just do that at Bakersfield College. But what I am more passionate about, because I love my job and I'm going to do it until I retire, I have kind of shifted into what I call a peer support role, and I do a lot of mental health advocating online. So I share my story and go over things. And try to give the tips that I've learned and just try to normalize mental health, but also for my specific diagnosis that I'll talk about in just a sec, it's very unique and it's actually very misunderstood. So all that being said, that's who you're listening to. And let me get into my story really quickly and then also try to share a little bit of advice. Unfortunately, I can't be a mentor today for you all, but if you look me up online, OCD Strong is all of my handles on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Message me. And I would be happy to talk to you. I talk to thousands of people all the time, and if you're local, we could meet up, and I could definitely be a mentor, but that won't be for tonight. So here's my story, and I want to start with this. Like Matt said, everybody can struggle. I come from a two-parent household. My dad and my mom are amazing people. They both have their education, and I have been lower than low way more times than I can count. So everybody can struggle, man, woman, Black, white, Hispanic, I don't care who you are, everybody can struggle. So I say that because just like Matt said, sometimes, I think there's a stereotype for what mental health looks like, and there really isn't. So here's my story. To preface it, my issue that I have, that although there is others, the foundational thing of me is something called obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. Everybody in here has heard about OCD, but unfortunately, it is super misunderstood. People always say, I'm a little OCD, right? I like things a little bit here, a little bit there. Absolutely, that's not what OCD is at all. OCD, according to the World Health Organization, is one of the top, anywhere from top 10 to top 5, based off of the year, most debilitating disorders in the world. Very high suicide rate, very high stopping work and going on disability rate. It's absolutely terrible. And the way that what OCD really is you get a thought, we all get intrusive thoughts in our head, but they start getting deeper, darker, and then you do something about the thoughts. So for example, you get a thought in your head, a lot of new parents, they hold their baby, and oh my gosh, what if I throw my kid on the ground, okay? And then all of a sudden, that goes away. A lot of new parents, that happens to. Well, someone like myself or others that have OCD, that thought can then turn into, I'm a bad parent, I'm gonna kill my kid, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And people have literally driven to the police station and turned themselves in for going crazy about wanting to kill their kid. Because with the OCD cycle, you get the obsessional thought, you start getting anxious, you do something to make that thought go away. It's called a compulsion. You feel better for a minute, and then it just keeps spiraling. And if you don't get the right help, you end up happening like what happened to me in 2020, which I'll talk to. So here's how OCD has manifested itself in my life. At 7 years old, I remember my very first panic attack. I was sitting in bed thinking I was gonna go to hell, and just all these crazy random thoughts were happening at 7. I just thought I was an anxious kid. That's what my parents always told me, because OCD is very misdiagnosed and misunderstood. Around the age of 10 is the first time I started being super depressed. Kind of odd to think that a 10 or 11-year-old, is depressed, but every Christmas from the time I can remember, I've always been super sad. Don't want to go back to school, don't want to go open up presents. Very, very depressed. Didn't know what it was at that point. I just thought everyone was sad around the holidays. But for me, it was really bad. High school started, got a little bit better, found alcohol. That was always very helpful for me. And what happened was I was playing baseball and I started losing balls in the outfield. So I went to doctors for my eyes and I was getting brain scans to see if I had tumors. Found out not all it was, but what was happening is I was getting nervous and my pupils were dilating, and that was making me lose the balls in the outfield. So that was when I first got diagnosed with my issues. But I didn't get the proper help. So about 10 years, more of 6 or 7 years, I was limping through life, went to school. I was able to pass my classes, right? Took me 3 years. Never graduated magna cum laude or summa cum laude, but I made it through. I was able to play baseball. Again, alcohol and other things helped me get through that. And then my senior year in college, about 3 months away from graduating, the intrusive thoughts just got horrible, and I left campus. I broke down. I called my mom. I said, I'm leaving. I can't be here anymore. First time I ever thought about killing myself. And I'd met my parents on the 99 at Jack in the Box, and I said, I'm done. 2 months away from graduating with my bachelor's degree. I really think God was looking out for me. I went to a small Christian school. I don't know how I was able to get back in 3 weeks later, but I showed up. I think my dad made some phone calls. I still to this day don't know. They let me finish my classes, and I was able to graduate, and that's when I started my pretty intense therapy journey at that point. However, the bad thing is with OCD, as Matt and I were talking about at the very beginning, it usually takes 18 years to be diagnosed because there's a very specific therapy that you need for OCD if you really want to have recovery. I didn't get that. So I kept limping through. I got married, I have an amazing wife, I got kids, but again, the whole time I was in this constant loop of intrusive thoughts, breakdowns, and all these things that were happening. And then it all came to a head in 2020 when COVID happened. And on June 6th, that's the day that I had to give my wife a gun that I had in my pocket. And man, when you got 3 kids and you're thinking about killing yourself and you got to give your wife a gun, it's not good. So that was when I finally got the help that I needed. And it's still hard. I mean, I went to intense therapy, much like what his place provides, which is fantastic. But I got the help that I needed to at least now be a little bit more manageable. I don't like the hero's journey mental health stories, meaning that you get to a peak and then you're great and everything's good. I think that's a bunch of garbage. I think that might happen for some people, and that's great, and I pray it happens to you. It definitely has not happened to me. However, I got the right help, and like this talk, which I love the word, there is hope when it comes to mental health issues for anybody. I mean, part of my advocating role that I do I used to work really closely with the International OCD Foundation. And there's a group of advocates, and it's really interesting. There's 2 groups. There's the one group that thinks you're done no matter what, you're gonna struggle for the rest of your life, it just sucks. And then there's the other group that they know that it's hard, but that there's hope out there if you get the right help, right? And I definitely fall into that group. And it was funny because we used to kind of consider it like the hope group. So it's really ironic that that's the name of this talk, because there is hope as long as you're willing to, or not willing to, as long as you have the resources, or maybe you know about the resources, right? So that's where I can't wait to hear Matt's talk, because just knowing where the resources are is sometimes super important, right? So I am going to give a little bit of advice, and then I want to make sure that we have some time for questions at the end as well also. But the first thing I want to say is if you are struggling, please reach out for help. There is help out there. Go to your counselor in your office. The academic counselors are not there just for ed plans. They should be there also for personal social stuff if you need something. All right, so reach out if you need anything. Message me on Instagram and TikTok. I gave a talk to a group of athletes just a few months ago, and I had some direct messages on social media, and I've been talking with them recently. So if you message me on Instagram or TikTok, TikTok's kind of odd. It kind of goes to the spam. Go to Instagram. But if you message me, I will absolutely 100% message you back. So please, if you're struggling out there, get help. I tell my students all the time, I say, look, if your car is broken, you take it to a mechanic. If your brain is broken, you go to a therapist. Like, why are we willing to help our car but not help ourselves? If your stomach hurts and you get COVID, you go to a doctor. If your head hurts and you're struggling, why not go to a therapist, right? There's such a misconception out there. It's really ironic, actually, and one of the reasons why I wanted to get into the advocating and posting and trying to be more public about this is when I pull my Instagram and TikTok numbers, this is just kind of ironic to kind of hit home on why this is so important. As my Umoja students say, I'm a little TikTok famous at times. A few videos have gone a little viral. But I can pull analytics, and 80% of my followers are female, but 60% of my direct messages are male, right? It's really interesting. And of those 60%, about 20% are from the Middle East, which is kind of cool. So I say that because that's one reason why I want to be out here and talking about it, because it's such a stigma that is below the surface that we just can't talk about it. We're not willing to go. I don't know what it is. Some of it's cultural, some of it's pride. Who knows? It doesn't matter what it is, it just is. So please get help. You're going to fix your car, fix yourself. Okay? Please go out and get help. The world is better with you in the world. The other thing that has helped me that hopefully will help you, so maybe this is the piece of advice that'll change the trajectory, is a little bit of a mindset shift that I've tried, and it helps sometimes, not all the time. I remember praying and saying, God, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why do I want to kill myself? Why am I alive? Like, I have prayed for death so many times. The amount of times I've prayed for cancer, because I'm a Christian man, if I kill myself, I don't know what's going to happen. So I prayed for cancer. I drive to Bakersfield 5 days a week for my job. I hope my wife's not listening. There's been some days where I'm like, I would love for this big rig to just swerve and take me out. And that's a heavy thought. Like, when you sit back and think about it, right? I got 3 kids and a wife. Like, that's not good. But something that has kind of helped me is trying to shift 2 words. So instead of, God, why me? I try to tell myself, God, me, ... why? And those 2 words have really helped me contextualize things, because maybe there's something else, maybe there's a reason why I'm going through this. And I fully believe that God allows me to go through these issues to help other people. It sounds weird, and I hate it, and I wish there was other ways, but I do fully believe that God has allowed me to go through these problems to help someone. Maybe there's someone here tonight, maybe it's my students, because it sucks talking about it, but someone needs to talk about it. And I fully believe God allows me to do this. Maybe that's why you're struggling. Maybe He's allowing you to go through something to help your family. Maybe you're not religious and you just think that that's karma's way of making you go through something to help somebody else. But that word, that switch has really helped me. Instead of God, why me? God, me, ... why? And there's got to be a why out there. And I know there is a why for sure. The last 2 things then. One is, and this is just in general a great thing. Every morning I try to pray that I'm going to help 1 student a day. Because if I can help 1 student a day, that I really change their life, that's 185 to 200 a year times my whole career. That's good, 20,000 people that I could potentially help. And sometimes all you have to do to help somebody is just show them that they matter, right? So I'm telling you this as a whole. This is just kind of my way of trying to give back to society, but please show people that they matter. I can tell you right now, Diane Rankin, I don't know if anybody in here knows Diane Rankin. She was my sophomore English teacher, and all she did was show me that I mattered when I was a sophomore in high school by not failing me in English, because I was a little punk kid that did all kinds of stuff. She could have failed me, she could have kicked me out of class, but for some reason, she always showed me that I mattered. And I'll tell you what, if you read my dissertation, I thank my wife, I thank God, I thank my dad, and I thank Diane Rankin, because she just showed me I mattered. That's all she did. She didn't say anything crazy. She just loved on me. She didn't flunk me when she could have flunked me. I think she sent me to the principal's office a few times, but it wasn't terrible. But she showed me that I mattered. The guy named Derek Curry, a local guy. My son plays on a travel baseball team, and he goes to a small school, and he has no friends at his school, not 1 friend, because he likes to play sports, and all of his friends do other stuff. And I was looking at having my son play on a baseball team, but they play Saturdays and Sundays, and we don't play baseball on Sundays because we go to church. No other team would ever allow a player to play only 1 day a week. And the local guy, Derek Curry, said, that's fine, show up on Saturdays, you don't have to play on Sunday. That one act is now the reason that my son has friends that he hangs out with all the time. That's all he did. He just allowed my son to play on a team that nobody else would have allowed because of missing the game on Sunday. So try to show people that they matter. The last 2 things are this, and I'm coming up on my 20, I want to do 15, okay? I know we got some athletes in the room, because I heard some athletes are showing up. And everybody's in a different trajectory, right? Some are super sad, some are like me, and they literally are praying for death. Others just need a little bit of a kick. And I want to share a poem with you that I kind of wrote, but I also kind of, not stole, but I modeled it after. What's it called, professional? Yeah, so no one actually wrote it, but so I wanted to call this Choose Your Suck, but my wife said not to, because she said that there'd be some important people in the audience. So I had to listen to my wife, and it's called Choose Your Hard. Okay, so I want to do this last thing, and then I am done, and I really thank you for your time. Working on yourself in therapy is hard. Untreated mental illness is hard. Choose your hard. Studying is hard, but not making grades and losing financial aid is hard. Choose your hard. Waking up on Saturday to practice or to study is hard. Waking up on Saturday hungover is hard. Choose your hard. Speaking in front of people is very hard. Saying no to a friend who asks you is hard. Choose your hard. Being a good parent is hard, but raising an ungrateful child is hard. Choose your hard. Helping other people is hard, but losing an opportunity to help people is hard. Choose your hard. So I ask you, what hard will you choose? Because going to therapy sucks. Being vulnerable sucks. Having your doctorate degree with 3 kids and playing college baseball and then telling your wife that you want to kill yourself is hard. But I think being gone will be worse. The last thing I'll leave you with is this, and this changed my life years ago, so I'm going to share it. This is one of the biggest things that changed my trajectory. And it's just this simple concept of what is your why? So what I do every morning, especially when I'm having a bad day, and if you come to my office, which I don't know how many of you will ever be in Bakersfield, but you'll be in Bakersfield maybe. If you come to my office, you'll see this there, and I have 3 letters, and it says FFO. And I wrote that because there's this concept that when I used to teach a lot of classes on career development, I would always start it off with, why are you in college? Like, what's the reason? What is your why? And what I try to get my students to get to is why do you do what you do? Why do you get up in the morning? What gets you motivated? That's deeper than just you yourself, right? So my 3 things are my faith, my family, and serving other people. That's my 3 whys. So that's why FFO is on my desk. I was going to have God, family, and others, but GFO, I was like, probably shouldn't have. As a counselor and a Christian, I shouldn't have GFO like on my computer screen, so I switched it to faith. And I mean that because there are days where I just don't want to get out of bed. And I need a few things to give me that kick in the butt, right? And my why is very helpful. I truly believe God placed me on this earth to serve people through my counseling role. I truly believe God blessed me with my family to serve them. I believe God allowed me to go through trials to be here to help you all. So I would ask you and I would challenge you to say, figure out what your why is. Because whether you are like me and you think about killing yourself quite often, or whether you're just like someone that needs a little extra motivation, that why might keep you going. And I'll tell you, a big reason I'm here, last year my 7-year-old daughter started getting intrusive thoughts. And I want her to see this one day. Because if I can do this, I know she can too. So thank you.
It's interesting. I asked my students who are hopefully watching online to do a discussion post, and the last question that I asked them to write is, after this is over, what does hope mean to you? The last thing that Jonathan just said seems to be a pretty good answer to that question. Hope. That a daughter that he loves with his entire life can see that what his own flesh and blood goes through, that if daddy can do it, she can do it too. That seems like a pretty good hope to me. Well, I think they used to say, why have one mat when you can have 2? If 2 mats aren't better than 1, I'm just saying, right? So I'd like to thank Alex for bringing us another mat, and another mat with a PhD, a doctorate, sorry. As my students like to tell me, I'm not a real doctor. I'm just a PhD. But I have the honor of bringing up our next guest speaker. He is a psychologist. He is a CEO. His name is Dr. Matthew Tatum. He is also a 6-time qualifier for the Ironman World Championship. That is the clear distinction between the 2 of us. I look like what happens to your body after you tried out for an Ironman. He is the Ironman. So clearly, I'm working on it, right? While building and leading multiple mental health and substance abuse treatment centers across California, he's also navigated his own personal battle with depression. His perspective on leadership, performance, and mental health is shaped not only by his professional training, but also by his lived experience balancing high achievement with the realities of mental illness. Please, everyone, welcome Dr. Matthew Tatum.
So unlike my,
Sorry. Nope. You can't start yet. Now you can.
oh, there we go. Yeah, 'cause that's scary. Yeah, this is actually my first time not speaking in front of people. That's a regular thing, but this is my first time sharing my story. So bear with me. But yeah, my name is Matt. I was born and raised in Fresno. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, CEO by self-title, I guess. Started my own companies about 7 years ago. I'm a Ironman triathlete, but I'm also somebody that lives with depression. And tonight, hopefully, there can be something in my story that gives you hope. The first time that I struggled with depression that I'm aware of was at the age of 16. I had a fairly devastating life experience, at least in the eyes of a 16-year-old, that sent me down this depressive spiral of sadness, of loss of motivation, discouragement, of hopelessness. And ultimately, that experience over the course of weeks and months led to me purchasing a handgun. And that was the first time that there we go. Yeah, so the culmination of that experience was me holding a .38 snub-nose revolver. Luckily, I was not smart enough to know how to get bullets, but somehow I was able to get a gun. And that fact probably saved my life. And so as I navigated that first episode of depression, the despair that came with it, the hopelessness that I was experiencing at the time, I made a small but meaningful decision that I didn't want to feel like a victim to my depression. And so what I did is I turned my depression into anger. And I got really angry at the entire world for no reason. Nobody had wronged me. But I felt like that empowered me in some way. That anger felt stronger than to feel depressed and to feel hopeless. And so I started using drugs and alcohol. I started fighting regularly. I started getting in trouble in school. And that experience, while it wasn't putting me on a path that was better than depression, it at least gave me a sense of power and control in my life. And so as that started to derail itself towards the end of my high school, when I got in a motorcycle accident and I got in a DUI and spent some time in jail, I decided I needed to make some changes. I had to get out of Fresno. I had to get out of the behaviors that I was starting to engage in that were just leading towards devastation. And so I made some changes. I moved to San Diego to do my undergraduate degree, ended up surfing instead of going to school and screwing around, but I at least was out of trouble. And I wasn't on the right path, and I didn't know how to get on a right path. So what I did is I started volunteering. I started volunteering at inpatient units, at homeless shelters, at adolescent day treatment centers, trying to find my why, trying to figure out, what do I do with my life experiences? It's like, it says that I have a doctorate, but I suck at school. Like, school is really freaking hard for me. But what I knew is, like, I had this desire to understand people and to be with people who had shared experiences. And I felt like I didn't want to squander that. So I wanted to understand the human brain and psyche better and use my lived experience to try to relate to other people. And so as I did that, I started to kind of gain this sense of direction in my life, this sense of purpose. I went to grad school and realized, I can learn from these textbooks and put some clinical knowledge and education, some foundations behind my desire to help other people, to give resources to people, to give hope to people who have been in similar situations of mine that I could deeply relate to. But that didn't magically make my depression go away, right? So as I started on my professional journey, I continued to struggle with depressive episodes. Even as I started on my athletic journey, I snowboarded and wakeboarded and stuff like that growing up, had never done any endurance, anything until I was in graduate school. And that's when I ran my first mile. And I was like, this is helpful for me, for my mental health recovery journey. And so even as I started on my professional career and athletic journey at the same time, depression continued to be a regular thing for me. And if you've struggled with depression or a mental health condition before, you know that it's not predictable. So you can't be like, next Tuesday, I'm gonna feel sad and not feel like getting out of bed, or next Wednesday, I'm gonna lack the motivation to do basic hygiene things. And so your life feels like this revolving phase of what's gonna happen today, what's gonna happen tomorrow, what's next month gonna be like. And so for me, as I continued on my professional and athletic journey, I was struggling with those things. Sometimes it was once a month. Sometimes it was fortunately just once a year. Sometimes it was mild, moderate, or severe, right? To use clinical language, which means it was a little bit, it was medium, or it was a lot. And so yeah, as I embarked on my professional career, I entered this stage where I had what felt like moral disagreement with somebody that I had built a business for, and I felt like I wanted to choose patience and patient care before the profit of a business, but I wasn't making the decisions, and I felt firm in my decisions. So I gave my employer an ultimatum that it was patient care and the decisions that I thought were most ethical in the treatment center, or the profit that he wanted to get out of the company. And so ultimately what that led to was us parting ways. And so I had 4 kids at the time, 5 people in my family that I'm taking care of as the only breadwinner in the household. And all of a sudden I'm jobless at the age of 35, right? So mortgage to pay, car payments, kids' healthcare, all that kind of stuff, and I have no job, and I had no hope, and all of a sudden became desperate again. And so instead of being a 16-year-old that couldn't pick up a gun or ammunition, I had a revolver sitting under my pillow. And so I spent 2 weeks where I just would not get out of bed, and that the idea of that gun being underneath my mattress just burned a hole in my head. And I knew that there were 4 kids out there that depended on me, but I also knew the easiest way to end my suffering was the relief that I was laying on top of. Luckily, in a moment of clarity and something else, who knows, the revolver ended up on the roof and out of my hands. And I made a decision, a really small decision, not just to throw the pistol on the roof, but to start doing something little. Like that day it was just getting up out of bed and walking out of my door and throwing the gun on the roof. And the next day it was spending 5 minutes with my kids at dinner time. Couldn't even make it through an entire dinner. And so each day what I decided is I'm gonna do something that's gonna help me on this journey on getting onto a different path. So over the next couple of days, over the next couple of weeks, I just did that little thing, like what feels like a little bit of an extra push today. So eventually what I did is I was able to collect this experience that I had running a substance abuse treatment center, and then what my therapist would later call the treatment that I needed at the time that I didn't have access to, and started 2 companies, Ascend Behavioral Health and Sierra Meadows Behavioral Health. And what the goal of these companies were, their mental health treatment centers, is to fill in the gap in the continuum of care, right? So in a lot of cities, we have outpatient therapy. You go to your therapist once a week for 45, 50, maybe 60 minutes, or you have inpatient psych hospitalization, right? And if you have accessed care before, a lot of times in these places where those are the only services, if you don't meet criteria for hospitalization, they say, well, go to your therapist and maybe try twice a week. But your therapist is like, well, you need the hospital, and you get stuck in this back and forth, and that's part of the mental health crisis in this country, right? Is if we don't have options in between outpatient therapy and inpatient psych hospitalization, then how are the folks like us, me, gonna get the help that we need, right? Like more than weekly therapy. And so we started with what's called an intensive outpatient program. It's a 4-day-a-week program. And what we did is we just started serving folks in the Fresno community that needed greater access to care. And because it was the first one in Fresno, it took off like wildfire. It just happened to also be during COVID. And so when therapists realize, oh, I can send my patients here for this type of therapy, or inpatient units are like, I can discharge patients here to this type of treatment. It grew faster than we could kind of keep up with for a while. And so even in the midst of that what other people would see as business success, right? Like the businesses were doing very well. And at the same time, I had qualified for Ironman World Championship multiple times. So again, like outward perception of athletic success. I had the biggest, longest depression episode that I've ever had. Another life circumstance smacked me right in the face out of nowhere. And to be honest, it's only been within the last 9 months that this 4-year episode has finally started to lift to the point where I can feel that sense of life returning. But 4 years of struggling with depression while continuing to pursue Ironman, while continuing to build businesses, while continuing to raise 4 kids. And the point of that is not like accolades for myself. The point of that is we can live life meaningful, purposeful lives with mental health conditions. It's not a death sentence, right? Like, it's not freaking easy to be able to get up out of bed when you don't want to, or to find the motivation to go to work when you don't feel like it. But what I hope to impart today is that you can do that thing, right? You always have to look for, what is that next thing? How can I push myself a little bit farther than I did yesterday? But a lot of times what I do is I look for the feeling to precede the action. I need to feel like getting out of bed. I need to feel like going to work. I need to feel like having this difficult conversation with an employee, or I need to feel like asking somebody for help. But oftentimes that's not what happens. Most of the time that's not what happens. The psychology of it is that feelings come after action, right? And so when I do this thing, get up to exercise, when I have this difficult conversation, when I engage in mindfulness or a gratitude exercise, then I start to feel a sense of efficacy, of improved mood, of better sleep, right? So the action precedes the feeling. Yeah, and then I guess the other thought that has helped me a lot of times is realizing that life is a set of phases. Oftentimes, especially in depressive episodes, we can feel like this is not just all-consuming, but it's permanent. This is going to last forever. And so, yeah, just in the midst of not just depressive episodes, but also of the good times, to be honest. Like, I hold the times where I'm feeling good and happy just as loosely as I try to when I'm feeling depressed. And that doesn't ruin happy moments for me. That actually allows me to cherish them more, right? And so I see, hey, if this is a season or if this is a phase, then it's fleeting, and let me enjoy every single ounce of it that I possibly can. And using that same logic, when I'm feeling depressed, I know that this too will pass, right? And so what are the things that I can do for myself, the small things? And a lot of times, like a lot of people have talked about tonight, one of those things that sounds small but feels monumental when we're in the midst of it is asking for help. If nothing else comes out of tonight, just realize that asking for help is a courageous act, not a cowardice one. It takes a tremendous amount of strength and courage to ask somebody else for help. And it's one of the most fundamental pieces of feeling better, if that's your goal, that any of us can do for ourselves, right? Because our brains are hardwired to be relational. And so, yeah, those are just some of the pieces of my journey that have been helpful for me to navigate the ups and downs. Sometimes it feels like more downs than ups, in order to continue to not progress through life, right? Because I don't think that it's linear than that, and I don't think that measuring our lives by what outward appearances of success looks like is helpful. But whatever you find meaning and purpose in, whatever your why is, just know that whatever your mental health struggle is, right, that you can continue to live out that sense of meaning and purpose, that why, and that mental health is not a death sentence.
I know that Matt and I and Jonathan, the three of us, had talked about leaving maybe a couple of moments before we invite community partners up for a moment, and then I'm going to give some closing remarks. For any questions, if there's anyone in the audience who has questions of the three of us or anything, please feel free. If you have a question, we can shoot a mic out to you, or if you're loud enough, we can just, do that. But I know Roger wants to get it on the live stream. But are there any questions by chance? Anyone? Yes.
I'm pretty loud. I'm okay. First of all, thank you for speaking. Like a lot more people. Being a single mom is hard, but like it's not having a mom is hard. So I choose my heart every day. My question is how having a 7-year-old, my sister feels hard. How do me as a parent help him feel like he's happy, especially at that?
Yeah, I'll start with my opinion. I mean, the first thing I would say is showing them the support that what they're going through is okay to go through it. It's really easy as parents to get mad and yell and scream, right? But I mean, trying to ask the questions, how are you feeling? Can you explain that a little bit more? That's the biggest thing that I've taken away. And then for me, I mean, I don't know if my wife would want me saying it, but I'm going to. I looked into therapy for my daughter as well. And, it's been helpful. She's not in it anymore now for a while because I think we got enough that we could use for right now. But I would say just that just unconditional support, being there as much as you can. Kids are resilient. If you're not going to be able to make every baseball game or softball game, that's okay. Kids know that. But just I love you. I'm there for you. I hear you. That's my recommendation for sure.
Yeah, I have a 4, 7, nope, that's not true. I have a 7, 9, 12, and 14-year-old. And so as I've navigated my mental health journey as a parent, I've honestly, more often than not, felt like I was wrecking my kids.
Yeah.
Feeling like I was ruining their lives because of my depression, because I don't want to go play baseball on the front lawn. I don't feel like. And so there have been a lot of times where it's like, I'm going to do this opposite action, right? Like in mental health, we talk about you feel this way and you do the opposite and you can see what their response is. And so a lot of times I've had to practice that, especially even when I don't want to. And I don't always, don't get me wrong, like probably don't more often than I do. I think what is comforting sometimes is a reminder from people that sometimes showing up as a parent is what your kids need. And you're showing up as your best self in that moment. And oftentimes, like I have a value as a dad, right? Of being present, of being supportive, of being caring, compassionate, understanding, loving, supportive. And more often than not, I feel like I'm missing that mark when I'm depressed because I don't have the energy to do that thing that I would otherwise want to do. And then I feel guilty about it. And so for me, like showing up, I think really helps. Feel like I'm doing my best at times and recognizing this is a phase. And when hopefully I'm out of this phase, like I'm gonna pour extra energy into this thing, not to make up for it, but knowing that there's gonna be ups and downs in life. I'll shut up after this. 2 more things. One would be like recognizing that your kid watching you struggle but continue to fight is a healthy thing, in my opinion. Hiding our struggle from our kids is not a healthy thing. I think I personally grew up in a generation where like hiding your struggle was your normal thing, right? Like the Chancellor was talking about, we don't talk about our stuff. Like you just move on to the next thing and try not to let the other people around you see the suffering or the struggle. And so then the last thing that I would say is let the kids see the struggle. Like I had to debate whether or not I was going to encourage my 12 and 14-year-old to watch tonight because I haven't shared certain aspects, particularly the suicidality with my older 2. The younger 2 are too young. But that's the other piece is that I've realized in my journey that like, as is developmentally appropriate, I want to be able to share as openly as I can with my kids because that then cues them in. It gives them words for what they're feeling. If they feel like mom's off or dad's off today, like being able to articulate that for them is healthy for their brain, right? It gives them closure instead of worrying or wondering or guessing. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, mom's having a bad day. Like that literally gives their brain a sense of closure. So I think naming and talking about mental health or feelings or your state of being is healthier than ignoring it.
Yeah, and I want to just piggyback because the age-appropriate self-disclosure is good. My daughter and I call them our sticky thoughts. So, she doesn't know, and my kids are 10, 8, and 7. They don't know that I've wanted to kill myself, and they're not watching this because they're not at that age yet. But, age-appropriate, I think is perfect. My 7-year-old or now 8-year-old is fine with that, so that's good. And also, don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, honestly, like we're not perfect. So kids are resilient and we're not perfect. So give yourself some grace and forgiveness.
One more thing, you did mention that the depression that turned into anger. My son has a lot of angry outbursts. So do you feel like being active really helped with that?
Yeah, depression manifesting as anger is very common in childhood and adolescent boys in particular, right? There's this feeling of, I don't know what to do. There's an emotional overwhelm, right? Like the amygdala in the brain. And so sometimes that turns into a frustration with, I don't know what to do this feeling, and I don't have the words because boys don't say sad. And so it comes out as anger. And so there are certainly going to be outlets for that anger that are healthy, but also getting them to slow down and articulate what's actually going on right now. I know that sounds ridiculously difficult with an angry boy, but even if that happens after the anger starts to come down, and then be able to process with them, right? Ask them questions, be curious about their experience.
I mean, on a side note, I'm not a parent. I don't have that honor. It is the desire of my heart to one day have that, and I may not. But I will say that uniquely, you've had 4 men talk about being vulnerable. 4 men of different ages, ethnicities, and experiences say, we have to be willing to go against what culture has said we shouldn't do. And so too often, the words that I have been called, because I have always been open with my emotions, you could imagine the words I have been called. Derogatory words that have been used against gay people, I have been called those things. And those are the nicer things. And so, in this case tonight, we have 3 men telling their stories about mental health. That was not the intent, it just happened to work out that way. But the reason I say that is because the unfortunate stereotype is that, well, boys just get angry and girls are just sad. And trust me, there are plenty of girls that get angry, and there's plenty of boys that are sad. But we feed stereotypes of gender that boys, well, should just go, punch something, and girls should just go cry, or it's just a menstrual cycle, or it's just a fill in the blank. And then we wonder why we have so many men in jail who have emotional mental health issues, because we don't have people who can get to them to talk. So we just have to also be willing to have the conversations, regardless of one's gender, race, ethnicity, and all the other things. And so I'm hoping in a way that this inspires more conversations, irregardless of who's having it and how it's being had. Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Telling you that you may need medicine. What did you thought about that at such a young age?
For you or for him?
For him. No, I'm not allowed.
Let's talk about you.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old's on the spectrum as well, on the mild end of the spectrum. I think there is a time and a place for medication. There has been in my life, right? There have been times where the depression is severe enough to where I know that that is one of the few things that is going to help me, right? Because mental health is not just in your head, right? Like, it is actually in your head, right? So neurochemically, there are a lot of disorders that are going to benefit from psychiatric medications. And then there are other times where we can do wellness types of things, where I can manage my mental health with diet and exercise and sleep and things like mindfulness activities and gratitude in order to help my brain chemistry. And there's times where it feels beyond that and medication is helpful. So when you look at developmental disabilities, which is autism is within the category of developmental disabilities, that's a completely different conversation, right? Because of the way the brain is structured, not just is chemically balanced. Yeah, and then we all get to make choices as parents, right? Of what interventions we're okay with or feel acceptable to us. Yeah, I'm skirting your question a little bit, probably.
It's individualized, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's probably partly what I'm getting at. It's individualized. I think I guess here's what I would say. You should feel really confident with your provider. If you're receiving a medication recommendation for your kid for anything, whether it's the flu or a mental health diagnosis, you should feel extremely secure and confident that your provider knows exactly what they're doing, knows exactly what your child's diagnosis is, and how to help them.
I think we had one more question. Yes, please.
So it could be for any of you guys, or I know you mentioned that there's community partners. So
Yes.
maybe they can help answer, but I work in the public sector and like oversee a lot of services and programs that serve our most vulnerable in our community. And I know there's so much advocacy for mental health now, like the stigma's diminished a lot about, asking for help. But, what we see a lot is that mental health services are so hard to access.
Sure.
What would your guys' advice be for like, what would be the first step you can like navigating that, and getting services? Like, it would be like your primary provider. I know like a lot of times like insurance doesn't cover those kind of services. So like, what would your guys' advice be on that route or taking that avenue?
Aaron, would you like to answer this on behalf of PC real quick? Because I can answer on behalf of BC.
For our students, they can connect with our wellness counselors, and they have a list of community partners, different resources here in Tulare, Kings, Kern, depending on where you live, but they have a list of resources ready to go. As we have basic needs resources, there's just a lot of support here that you have to come in or make an appointment to meet with our wellness counselors. We can email you that information. Who asked that question?
Right there in the hat.
Yes, we can get that information. I can give you our card, and we can have abilities connect with you. We have 2 wellness counselors. We'll be getting a full-time wellness counselor this fall, as our state chancellor's office in Sacramento sees the need and has made mental health funding now available to all California community colleges, so that we can have our teams do the work and have these services on site here.
And while he passed the mic back, I would say from the kind of the community side as a whole is asking questions and advocating for yourself, meaning like don't just stop at one answer. So when I went back and I didn't tell the story, it's actually kind of funny and ironic now that I think back, but I went to a local psychologist for help, and it didn't feel right, the information he was giving me. So I had to go to a second and a third opinion. And that third opinion is what got me the right help. Mm-hmm. So sometimes what I have found is that self-advocating, looking up things, you don't want to diagnose yourself, right, on TikTok or Instagram, but I mean, if you get, make phone calls, and ask those questions as well, because sometimes there's different niches out there that you're not aware of. So.
I've seen multiple articles about ChatGPT and people using it. So
that's going to be an issue for you all if it's not already.
Full transparency, I've taken like things from like my doctor and put it into ChatGPT and just be like, what does it mean in plain language? Right? But I've seen now more people going to ChatGPT to like have it diagnose them. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Don't do that part. But maybe to have it more plain language. But in all reality, that what Jonathan said, I've done that myself with therapy, right? Is taken things and had it found with other people. But as Aaron said, Alex is here. She's one of ours. So there are connections here at PC. At Bakersfield College, we have Kimmy Salazar. She is our mental health service need person, and so she is looks over that. What I'd like to do now, community partners, if you would like to come down real quick and say hi and introduce yourselves and just take like 30 seconds and introduce yourselves, please come on down real quick. Please do. Come on. Come on down. I said you guys were going to come down real quick. Come on. So,